5 News, up to 30 feared dead as an avalanche engulfs a hotel in Italy. Rescue teams battle against the cold and the clock to reach those trapped. But when they got there, this is the scene that met them. Few are thought to have survived. Also this evening, the 4-year-old fed illegal drugs by her mother to keep her quiet.
Up, down, up, down.
Poppy Widdowson died after being given heroin, diazepam and other drugs for months. Michaela Pike and her boyfriend John Ritting got 13 years each. On his way to the White House, the man who will be president this time tomorrow. And as the man he replaces spends his last day in office, we hear from the British family who'll miss him more than most.
He was just the most amazing person in front of the barbed wire fence. He's very tall, very handsome and quite awe-inspiring.
Hello and welcome to 5 News. I'm Sian Williams. Rescuers are still battling to pull survivors from a hotel in central Italy which was hit by an avalanche. Around 30 people are missing, many are thought to have been killed. Some of the holidaymakers at the Reggio Piano resort were able to send text messages after being trapped in the snow. One couple are reported to have said simply, "Help, we're dying of cold." Here's Dominic Reynolds.
Rescuers left the ambulances stuck miles behind them last night. The only way to this emergency was on skis. Eventually, in the torchlight, a window into the Reggio Piano hotel. But this is the top floor. There are 2 more buried beneath. Inside, corridors packed with snow and total silence. They are looking for at least 30 people. From above, you might not even spot the hotel was there at all. The avalanche happened on the night 4 earthquakes shook this part of central Italy. It is remote here, but that's just the first challenge for rescue teams.
First of all, they have to arrive there. Then they have to enter and then to understand exactly where the people are. And then they also need to be careful of their safety. And this is why other organizations are there to support them.
This is the Hotel Reggio Piano in the summer. The avalanche buried all but the tallest trees around it. Publicity shots show the luxurious swimming pool inside, and the wall of snow came right up to the water's edge. Beyond the hotel, the whole area is struggling under snow. The weather had left many parts of Abruzzo without power before last night. And if that name sounds familiar, it's the same region where a quake last August killed more than 300 people. The rescue vehicles are queuing in their dozens to get up to the hotel in Farindola. But they can only move as fast as the snow can be cleared. And the temperatures up in the mountains mean time to find survivors really is short. Dominic Reynolds, 5 News.
For all her short life, Poppy Widdowson was surrounded by drugs. She was a vivacious young girl, but her mother and her mother's partner were drug dealers, and they saw her as an inconvenience. When she died at the age of 4 in 2013, it was found they'd been feeding her heroin, ketamine and methadone for months. Today, Michaela Pike and John Ritting were jailed for 13 years each for child cruelty. Peter Lane reports.
Up, down, up, down.
Seen here in happier times with her father's family, Poppy Widdowson was, the judge said, plunged into the mire of drugs by her mother and lived a short life described in court as tragic from the moment she was conceived to the moment she died. 4-year-old Poppy suffered a cardiac arrest. Tests showed she'd been fed a cocktail of drugs like heroin and methadone in the months leading up to her death. Her mother, Michaela Pike, and her boyfriend, John Ritting, were addicts and dealers and fed Poppy the drugs to sedate her because they saw her as an inconvenience. Other relatives were in court as the pair were jailed for 13 years for child cruelty and drug offences.
We have waited over 3.5 years for this day, and And although it does not get any easier, as nothing can back the little girl that filled our lives with 4 years with joy and a purpose. Knowing they will be behind bars is some consolation and justice for Poppy, but no amount of time will ever be justice for what they did.
The court heard that Poppy Widdowson was emotionally abused in a cruel and deliberate way by her utterly unfit mother. One text message referred to Poppy being given a blue Smartie, thought to mean diazepam, and going to sleep. The judge said that due to her mother's drug taking, Poppy was born a heroin addict, and he suggested her name was a reference to the drug. He added that her mother's attempts during the trial to express love for her had been a despicable masquerade. Peter Lane, 5 News.
6 British people have been killed in a minibus crash near Medina in Saudi Arabia. They were on their way back to Medina from a pilgrimage to Mecca. It's believed the victims were a couple from Glasgow and 4 people from Manchester. The Prime Minister has told world leaders that Britain is open for business. In a speech to the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, Theresa May said Brexit will allow Britain to seek new trading partners and allies around the globe.
The United Kingdom, a country that has so often been at the forefront of economic and social change, will step up to a new leadership role as the strongest and most forceful advocate for business, free markets and free trade anywhere in the world.
This time tomorrow, Donald Trump will be the new president of the United States. He'll be sworn in at an inauguration ceremony in Washington, D.C., where today, final rehearsals for the event are taking place. Well, the man himself is expected to arrive in the U.S. Capitol shortly. This morning, he tweeted, "The journey begins." So, how do Americans feel about him taking them on that journey? Our political editor Andy Bell has travelled to the city of Martinsburg in West Virginia, where 2/3 of people voted Trump, to find out.
If you're looking for a scene that represents Middle America, you'll struggle to find a better one than this. This is Martinsburg High School in West Virginia, and the basketball team, the Bulldogs, are taking on their local rivals. Some of those watching, though, have another recent contest in mind.
It's time for a change. We need somebody in the White House that is not a typical politician.
He's not typical, is he?
He's not. He's someone who speaks their mind.
We have a lot of people here that need help, and it's all going to illegals.
Says things like he wants to build a wall with Mexico. What do you think?
I want him to build a wall. I want him to legislate and do whatever he has to.
I think we need to take America back. And
what do you think was going wrong before?
Oh, everything I can think of.
He said some things along the way that, especially about women, that people have found, have put them off, but it hasn't bothered you?
No, I'm sure a lot of men have said things like that and haven't been caught.
Every county in West Virginia voted for Donald Trump. It's one of the states that provided the bedrock for his victory. Here in Martinsburg, though, there was more of a contest, and certainly we found people here who are unsure about the new president.
Ready? Yeah.
The blue-white grill's been a fixture in the town centre for decades.
It's a pretty bad mark on the U.S. that he could get elected in this country.
You feel disappointed with the country?
Very much so.
He wasn't the best choice for us. When I say us, I mean the poor, disenfranchised people. He's a businessman. He's not even a politician. How does that happen?
In his barbershop on Main Street, Jason Ramage tells me he didn't vote for either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, but...
Your customers are in here talking to you.
I voted all the way for Trump.
Because most of them would be Trump supporters.
They are against too much government. They are for the people.
And so you think that Donald Trump is much more in line with what your customers are after?
I think so. I think so.
Leave West Virginia heading for Washington and you enter Virginia, another state. This one, though, voted for Clinton. Will Estrada's a local Republican Party chairman here. He has his invite to the inauguration, and he has a message for those already writing off the new president.
He's done a good job building a brand of a business that's sought after worldwide, and I think when you take a step back and say, let's look at, not what he's tweeting and what he says in unscripted moments, but what he's done over the years, there's a lot to like there.
But America is divided between those frustrated by what's happened and those delighted by it. One era is ending, a new one is just beginning.
And Andy, America will have a new president by this time tomorrow, but the inauguration not without controversy.
Certainly not, Sian. I mean, you look at the opinion polls and they say that Donald Trump is assuming the presidency with the lowest approval ratings of a president at such a moment. And there are dozens of Democrat senators and congressmen who are actually boycotting the inauguration ceremony tomorrow. Donald Trump, we believe, is very nearly on his way into Washington, D.C. His plane coming down from New York has landed in Maryland. And his team tell us he's still actually working on his inauguration speech. They say it's not going to be an agenda. It's going to be more philosophical, setting out his view of America. But I think a lot of people will be watching to see, is he going to be less the divisive, sometimes aggressive candidate from the election? Is he going to sound a bit more presidential tomorrow?
Andy, thank you. So today is Barack Obama's final day in office. We're going to look back at his presidency a little later on in the programme. Also still to come on 5 News. The woman who's living with dementia, aged just 39.
Being stuck like it, that's the only way I can put it, is being stuck like in this episode for ever and ever and ever. That's very scary.
And looking back at that legacy of President Obama on his last day of office. We'll see you after the break. Hello and welcome back. You're watching 5 News. Lives could have been saved if a travel company had carried out proper security checks before the attack in Tunisia, which killed 30 British tourists, an inquest has heard. 38 people died when a gunman went on a shooting spree in the resort of Sousse in 2015. Today's hearing was told that TUI hadn't carried out regular risk assessments, even though there'd been an attack that took place there 3 months earlier. Layla Hayes reports from the inquest.
This amateur video shows Seferdin Rezgui running along the beach in Sousse, just moments after he'd killed 38 tourists. Armed with a gun and a grenade, his rampage lasted 20 minutes before he was shot dead. 30 of those he killed were British, and today their families heard that the tour operator TUI should have increased security at its resorts before the incident. Just 3 months earlier, 20 tourists were killed at the Bardo Museum in the capital, Tunis. Yet although the Foreign Office said there was a high risk of terrorism in places visited by tourists, no extra security checks were carried out in Sousse. Addressing TUI's Director of Risk, Andrew Ritchie QC said, "I put it to you that TUI should have audited security when the Foreign Office advised that there was a high risk of terror activity after Bardo. Do you agree?" "No," replied Jack Reynolds, because the Foreign Office advice remained green, which meant there were no restrictions on travel, and we were told it wouldn't be changing, so we continued taking customers to Tunisia.
The court heard how prior to the attack in Sousse, TUI did not carry out regular security risk assessments in Tunisia, and it was only after the attack that that happened. The family's lawyer said if TUI had acted earlier, it might have saved lives.
The inquest heard that the Mahaba Hotel where the attack took place had only 6 CCTV cameras, whereas other hotels had as many as 49. But TUI said before the attack it expected the hotels themselves to review security. The families are hoping this inquest will tell them why their loved ones died and whether enough was done to inform them of the risks. Layla Hayes, 5 News.
When we think of dementia, we tend to think of it as a disease which hits older people. Well, imagine being 39 and realising you're losing your memory. Laura Burrell noticed hers was deteriorating a few years ago, but doctors have only just diagnosed early onset dementia. It's a condition that damages the brain, stopping it from laying down new memories. So Laura and her husband Phil are doing all they can to create and hold on to them, while Laura can still remember. Toby Sadler met them.
Laura Burrell is trying to remember her life. The photographs help.
She uses them to lock experiences into her long-term memory. Her condition is so rare in someone so young, everything her doctors do is experimental. Almost every day, anything left in her short-term memory could be wiped in an episode lasting hours.
It's like listening to lots and lots of songs and lots of music and being said, can you pick this one out? And you can hear it, but you can't sing it back, you can't isolate it as such.
Landmark events like her wedding to husband Phil top the list of what Laura wants to remember, but so do things like the voices of her friends and family.
Just waking up one day and it nothing being the same, and not having my language skills, being stuck like it. That's the only way I can put it, is being stuck like in this episode for ever and ever and ever. That's very scary.
So Phil, for you, you're on the outside looking in. It must be very difficult. How is it for you?
I have moments where I watch her and because she doesn't understand.
He feels like he's kind of lost his wife. I'm still in here, but it's kind of a kind of attenuated version of me. There's, especially when it becomes like I become childlike or confused.
Laura's short-term recall will only get worse. She and Phil are planning a road trip across America to create new long-term memories.
We've been through an absolute nightmare. We've been through a battle. That was then, and let's get this together and let's kind of make these new memories and enjoy life.
Laura and Phil need help and are trying to crowdfund the cost of the trip. Anything extra they get will be donated to dementia research. Toby Sadler, 5 News.
America is gearing up for its new president, and Donald Trump has just arrived on his way to Washington, D.C. And this is him arriving, and he's going back in again. We'll see more of Donald Trump a little bit later. America gearing up for that inauguration, which takes place 5 o'clock tomorrow. Let's have a look at the current one, though, preparing for a life away from office. These official White House photos show just how Barack Obama has made the role his own. He was elected as a beacon of hope, his famous motto, "Yes, we can." There were the moments of history, watching in the Situation Room as the daring raid to kill Osama bin Laden unfolded. And the moments of levity, too. A president totally at ease with the people he served, whatever's the situation, no matter how young and no matter how small. First and foremost, though, family. And Michelle, who he calls his best friend and who's been there as his guide and support throughout. They've said how much they'll miss the place that's been their home. And Barack's final press conference gave him a chance to reflect on his future, as Ruth Liptrot reports.
Good afternoon, everybody.
It was his final press conference as president. As such, Barack Obama knew that his words would carry even more weight than usual. And when it came to what he wanted to pass on to his successor, this is what he had to say.
If you find yourself isolated because the process breaks down, or if you're only hearing from people who agree with you on everything, that's when you start making mistakes. And as I indicated in some of my previous remarks, reality has a way of biting back if you're not paying attention to it.
He also took the opportunity to defend the media and spell out what he saw as its role going forward.
My hope is that you will continue with the same tenacity that you showed us, and to push those of us in power to be the best version of ourselves.
In the short term, though, Mr. Obama's priority is a holiday away with his family.
I want to do some writing. I want to be quiet a little bit and not hear myself talk so darn much. I want to spend precious time with my girls.
As he says, it'll be an opportunity for him to take stock and reflect upon the last 8 years. But the last few weeks have also been a time for others to reflect on what kind of president he's been, and ordinary citizens and celebrities have been sharing their memories of him.
I never cried before from election result.
When he just changed all the rules on the table in regards to Cuba with the most succinct motivation imaginable, which is what we've been doing hasn't worked, which made all the sense in the world.
My Obama moment was the signing of the Paris Agreement and making the United States a leader in the fight against global warming.
He's my role model, my idol, because I want to be president.
Closer to home, though, this family met Mr Obama in 2014 when he visited Stonehenge. Now the boys have photos of him on their bedside tables.
When we waved him over and Mummy's saying he's the most powerful man, I thought Mummy meant he was Spider-Man.
He's very tall, very handsome and quite awe-inspiring.
Who better, though, to pay tribute to him than Michelle, who tweeted, "Being your First Lady has been the honour of my lifetime. From the bottom of my heart, thank you." Come tomorrow, of course, everything will be different. So this was his final message to an uncertain world.
At my core, I think we're going to be okay. We just have to fight for it. We have to work for it and not take it for granted. And I know that you will help us do that. Thank you very much, Press Corps. Good luck.
And if you want to see more of those amazing photos of Barack Obama's time in office, you can go to our Facebook page and search for Channel 5 News. That's it for now. Donald Trump has just arrived in Maryland ahead of his inauguration tomorrow. Matt is back at 6:30 with a special programme. It's called America Prepares, on all tomorrow's events. Chris Page has the weather for you next. I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching tonight. Bye for now.